I started talking about my ex and the cheating, and suddenly I was crying harder than I'd cried in months. Talking about it brought up feelings I thought I'd dealt with years ago, but clearly I'd just buried them. Gage listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he helped me see that I'd been protecting myself by assuming betrayal before it could happen. I'd been staying alert and watching for signs of cheating so I'd never be blindsided again like I was with my ex. But that constant watching and suspicion was costing me the chance at real closeness with someone who actually deserved my trust. Around the same time I started my therapy work, my boyfriend made a change too. He started going to his VA counseling appointments every week instead of once a month like he'd been doing before. The first few times he came home afterward, he looked wiped out. His eyes were red and his shoulders sagged like he'd been carrying heavy boxes all day. He'd drop his keys on the counter and head straight to the bedroom without saying much. I'd follow him in and find him lying on the bed staring at the ceiling. When I asked if he wanted to talk about it, he'd shake his head and say he just needed to process everything. But after a few weeks of regular sessions, something shifted. He started telling me small pieces of what he discussed with his therapist. He'd mentioned that they talked about Maya and the guilt he carried about not seeing the signs before she died. He'd explained that his counselor was helping him understand that survivor's guilt was normal, but also something he needed to work through instead of just carrying forever. One night after a particularly hard session, he sat at our kitchen table with his head in his hands and told me it felt good to finally stop pretending he was fine. He said he'd been holding everything in for 3 years, acting like he'd moved on and processed it all, when really he'd just gotten better at hiding how much he still hurt. Hearing him admit that made me realize how much strength it took for him to show up to those appointments week after week and actually do the work instead of just going through the motions. Things felt like they were moving in a good direction for both of us until one evening about 6 weeks after California. He was supposed to be home from work at 6, but 7 o'clock came and went with no text or call. By 7:30, I was pacing the living room, checking my phone every 2 minutes. My chest felt tight and my hands were shaking as old fears crept back in.